Hello, everybody, and welcome to Norm, the Cheers podcast that isn't. I'm Dave. I'm Mike. That's Dave. That's Cookie. I have my first cold in over a year and a half. I'm all messed up. You can tell it's rough. I got low key. 2020 might have been my favorite year. Like, I know we're all like, oh, it's the worst. Dude, I didn't get sick at all last year. It was so nice. I didn't have to cancel any plans. All I had to do was wake up alive the next day, and people were like, good for you. No one was asking me why I hadn't gotten Conan. It was a great year in some ways. And also, massive death. But in a lot of ways, it was a solid year. And now I have a cold, and I'm pushing through. I don't think it's COVID. I'm vaccinated. I should be okay. But yeah, I have a cold.
I mean, look on the bright side. No one's going to be asking you why you didn't get Conan in a few months.
Right? I guess that's the bright side.
Well, I caught a cold last year, a mild one, but it was still horrifying.
Yeah. How'd you catch it?
Oh, who knows? Just, probably got caught in the rain coming home with some groceries or something.
Yeah.
You know how that happens.
I do.
I haven't had a cold, really since the pandemic started, and it made me realize not having a cold made me realize just how terrible I feel as a baseline, like just how terrible it is to be old and to be aging, because in some ways I'm as healthy as I've ever been, and yet I wake up and I feel and look like this every day, and each day is a little bit worse.
Yeah. There's no better peak.
No, it's we are rolling down the mountain.
Yep.
Good.
Tookie's still in her ascension. We are.
What?
I mean, just think about it. Like, for us to not be more than halfway dead would be really hard. Like, we'd really be the old people if we weren't more than halfway at this point. It's an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, our best case scenario is to really be doddering.
Yep.
Halfway to doddering. That's that's going to be my memoir.
Well, no, we're going to dodder earlier than that. Doddering's happening way before the end.
I'm almost as horrified by this conversation as I am that photo of Paramount.
Oh yeah,
we should share that to the page.
Yeah, we should.
Oh yeah,
I was surprised. I thought a lot of people had seen that, and there was actually a podcast. Bill Simmons interviewed Andrew McCarthy, and he referenced that picture like a week ago before you posted that picture, because he is randomly in that picture. I mean, what's great about if you haven't seen it, it's this picture from I think Paramount's 50th anniversary, 50th, 60th, something like that. And so it's this big high school portrait of all the Paramount stars from yesterday, today, and tomorrow. The cast of Cheers is there. Yep, Ted Danson's there. Shelley Long is there. Rael Perlman is in there. And there's screen legends. There's Charlton Heston. There's Jimmy Stewart. There's De Niro is in there.
Molly Ringwald is just chilling.
Molly Ringwald was a big deal at that time. So it was yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And so at Paramount at that time, they were betting heavy on Molly and Andrew. All right, these are our stars. And it made sense. Molly Ringwald, she did nothing but make money in the 80s. Everything Molly Ringwald did made money.
There's a really clear Molly Ringwald, James Harden, Houston Rockets analogy here, but I don't know if I'm capable of making it just yet.
I will say James Harden wishes he had Molly Ringwald's career.
Ooh.
I'm sorry. I'm impressed with James Harden, but you know what? Molly did it in the playoffs too. Molly finished the movie.
Okay.
It was never it was a good movie. And then for the last 10 minutes, you're like, what the hell happened there?
Ugh.
I'm sorry.
Liz Taylor was also just chilling.
She's in there. Yeah, I mean, and that's the weird thing about putting that picture together too, is like you've got people who have nothing left to prove, and then a whole bunch of like gambles. Just a bunch of dice rolls. I mean, because Tom Cruise is there, and obviously he panned out.
Mm-hmm.
But at that time, he was probably in that same world of Molly Ringwald, Andrew McCarthy, these guys. Like, all right, well, let's see who actually hits. I'm blowing my nose.
It is a truly landmark photo in so many ways.
It's pretty great. Where did you stumble upon that?
On just Twitter. I was in a dark corner of Twitter, and and it popped up, and I was beside myself.
Leonard Nimoy looking like he's trying to get out of the picture.
Yeah, the amount of distance between Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman
is telling.
Yeah. Hey, they got 30 more years out of it. No, they did better than most any other Hollywood couple.
It's so upsetting to see a group of white people giving a synchronized hand gesture that, like, I don't even care that hand gesture is almost certainly innocuous. It makes me nervous.
Mm. That's a very white picture.
Well, speaking of Bennifer 2.0, how are we feeling about that?
Good for them. Good for them.
Okay.
Good for those kids. They've been through a lot, and you know what? At some point, you just want to put on your comfy clothes.
It seems like their relationship is on some sort of 17-year cicada cycle.
I like it. They're coming back loud and strong.
Yeah.
It's springtime, baby.
I personally was having a great time in the early 2000s, so I'm happy for anything that revisits that period.
Right? It was a fun stretch.
That was a good couple of years.
We had a good time.
I mean, but it's, people are talking about that, and you just kind of go, look, this is what happens in real life too. They both been through some breakups, some heartache. You stumble like into this friend, or this past lover that you knew, and you're like, all right, well, we know how to do this. And we're both a little bummed out and lonely, and things worked for a while. Let's do this. Why not? I'm happy for them. They're not going to get married.
You don't think so?
No.
Okay.
I mean, as much as like, I do think Ben is the marrying guy. Like, I do think he's the guy who says, I love you too quickly. He's the Sam. But they're not going to get married.
But J-Lo loves a wedding. I think J-Lo's whole vibe, she loves to be the center of attention. She likes to be the bride. Yeah. But it's the commitment part of marriage that I'm like,
I'm not saying they won't get engaged.
Yeah.
I'm saying they won't get married. They've been engaged.
Okay.
I mean, she was engaged to A-Rod for 4 years.
Ugh. That red flag. Red flag.
Huge red flag.
Huge red flag. Shit or get off the pot.
Yeah. All right. Maybe we need to move into this episode because I don't know how long I've got in me.
Oh, no.
And luckily, there ain't a lot to get into in this episode. Dave described it as vanilla pudding, which seemed about as kind as you could get. It just felt like Marky Post's audition for Night Court. That she didn't get.
There are just stretches of this episode where like they didn't even bother to write stuff. You could tell like Sam and Heather, Marky Post are just kind of ad-libbing some, over spaghetti dialogue. I'm like, what? Was there a strike this week? Like what happened? Like it just felt underwritten and under-examined in every way.
It feels like they just knew they were going to break up and they knew that had to be the end of the season. And they're running out the clock. This episode is so weird. It's so weird because I'm sorry. Like, it's so weird to have Marky and Heather. I forget her name. Like, Heather, it's so weird to have the two of them doing this weird flirting thing, which is so clearly flirting. And then somehow, like, Diane's wrong. No, you don't tickle your friend's boyfriend. Tickling is not okay. Like, that's so clearly flirting. The muscles was weird. It was all bizarre. None of this was okay. I'm sorry, we're going out of order. There's some good jokes in here, but we don't have to spend a ton of time on this. Dave, what was going on in the world when Just Three Friends premiered and let us all down?
Oh boy! So this was December 15th, 1983. And just a few days earlier, I felt like this needed memorialization on our non-podcast. 2 days earlier, in front of 9,500 fans at the McNichols Arena in Denver, Colorado, the highest scoring NBA regular season, highest scoring NBA game of all time was played. A triple overtime contest between the Detroit Pistons and the home Denver Nuggets. The Pistons prevailed 186 to 184. And this is a box score that gets shared somewhat regularly every few years.
To be the visiting team in a triple overtime game in Denver and winning, that's crazy. It's you Pistons.
It's pretty impressive. Wow. Isaiah Thomas played 52 minutes.
Wow.
And was by far the most valuable player on the Pistons. 47 points, 17 assists, 5 rebounds, 4 steals, and a block for the 5'0" Isaiah Thomas.
Give him all the Tommy points.
He gets truckloads of Tommy points. Meanwhile, over on Denver side, you've got Kiki Vanderweg dropping 51, 9 rebounds and 8 assists, which I don't know how you get 51, 9, and 8 and don't gun for the triple-double in triple overtime. It's Kiki Vanderweg did the near triple-double. Alex English dropped 47 with 12 boards. Amazing thing about this game is it featured all of 3 3-pointers attempted and only 2 made.
Wow.
Isaiah Thomas went 1 for 2, and a reserve for Denver, Richard Anderson, a 6'10" power forward center, went 1 for 1. So 2 for 3 from 3 in a game that featured almost 400 points.
Do you think Alex English was filming Amazing Grace and Chuck at this point?
I looked at some of the highlights, and he looks a little distracted, as if he's trying to remember dialogue. So possibly. He also looks a little shook. So, the specter of nuclear war definitely kind of hanging over him. So very possibly.
That might be a good rehash movie, Tookie. Do you know of Amazing Grace and Chuck?
No.
Alex English and a little boy decide to give up their respective sports to protest nuclear war.
Casual, as you
Brilliant.
do. Okay.
Very 80s.
Very 80s. It's not. It's surprisingly not as light as you'd like it to be.
Nope.
Very well. Okay.
Jamie Lee Curtis is in there.
Oh wow.
Gregory Peck, if I'm not crazy.
Okay.
Doesn't he play like the president?
So what you're
maybe I'm imagining this.
No, but what you're telling me is that
cold medication.
I was gonna ask.
No, it's Gregory Peck. Yep.
Thank you.
Oh boy.
Thank you, Sudafed.
So this was the Super Mario Brothers movie of its time, is what you're implying.
I don't know that I see. Where do you see Super Mario Brothers as the comparison?
Darker than it should be.
Oh,
okay.
I think it's heavier than it should be.
I mean, it is dealing with nuclear war. There's one of them are plumbers, and the other one is like, we could all die as a planet. Like, I think there's some gravitas that perhaps Amazing Grace and Chuck was due that Super Mario was not.
Okay.
Super Mario Brothers also might not have been able to afford lighting. I think that might have been part of the problem.
Yeah. Poor Bob Hoskins.
He didn't come cheap.
No.
He did not come cheap. There's a good story about, he had a good interview. He was the backup to the Untouchables. He was going to play Al Capone if De Niro was not available.
Ooh.
And so he got a holding fee for that. He got $100,000 to basically kind of, keep himself available because they weren't sure if De Niro could do it. Then De Niro could do it, and he didn't know he got to keep the money.
Oh.
He got it, yeah. And afterwards he called Brian De Palma and said, hey, if there are any other movies you need me to not be in, you tell me, because I'm here for you.
Oh.
Yeah. He would have been a great Capone.
He
would have been a better Capone than De Niro, honestly.
Yeah, I agree.
That is a fun movie. De Niro doesn't quite work as Capone.
De Niro's too De Niro.
Not quite worked as Capone, we might not have had Midnight Run.
R.I.P. Charles Grodin.
Amen. All right. I'm sorry, Dave. I totally derailed your what was going on in the world when this episode happened.
No, that's it. I just wanted to memorialize that spectacular series of mid-range jumpers that was Pistons Nuggets 1983. That somehow that percentage of 2-pointers went in to generate almost 400 points is a small miracle in a time of larger miracles.
That's not happening in today's basketball.
Nope.
Even as high scoring as those games are, to think about the degree of difficulty that you were playing with in games of days past. Like players got slapped up.
Mm-hmm.
They got slapped the F up going into the paint. And now it's all outside game. It's all small guys, shooters. It's just not the same.
It's amazing that it took somebody 30 years to realize that the 3-point shot was worth 50% more than a 2-point shot.
Math is ruining our sports, Mike.
Yeah. Indeed it is. Tookie, can you tell us about this week's cold open, please?
Alas. Well,
yeah,
okay.
That sums it up pretty well.
Okay. Well, on the bright side, it's again, another treat where we have cohesion. The cold open has continuity with the rest of the episode, but there have been some robberies in the neighborhood. I don't know if that's like consistent with the timeline. I don't know what was obviously I wasn't living in Boston in 1983. But according to Coach, there have been some robberies around the neighborhood, and so he contacted a friend of his to get them a security dog, which they have locked in Sam's office. And what an 80s! It almost made my 80s list of the trope of the dog, the mystery dog you never see that's in the office, but you hear, and it's terrifying.
Cheers would use this again.
Yeah.
This exact same bit came up later on with Woody.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah, Cochise.
Oh, no. Oh,
They do it better, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, it's better than when they do it again. So you almost want to forgive them.
Okay.
But yeah.
Oy. So yeah, the dog is a terror, and of course Cliff, because he is a federal employee, and we know that postmen have a way with the canines. He goes in and bloviating about how to speak firmly to the animal to make sure that it obeys your commands. And he struts into the office and he tells the dog, "Now sit." And Sam says, "He is sitting." And Cliff says, "Nuke the thing." Cut to the
and
music.
We're back to Amazing Grace and Chuck.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. We don't need to spend a ton of time on this. There was an A story and a B story this week. The B story was really more of a D story. It was the dog. I feel like they just needed something for Coach to do. They just needed Coach to kind of cause a problem. So Coach gets the dog. The dog is there. At some point, they give the dog liquor, and the dog becomes Randy. And that's pretty much the whole dog storyline, except for when Carla almost tries to kill Diane by pushing her in there for saying that she's not great with repartee. Very weird. It's just a weird Carla dynamic this week.
I think that's, in retrospect, I think that's my favorite part of the episode, just because it's like legitimately something is actually happening. Like
there's stakes.
Yeah, there's someone might die, someone might get hurt. Like Carla's livid. And yeah, I think that's the most sort of dramatic moment in the whole episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The A story is Diane's old friend Heather is moving to Boston. She comes in, never explains why. Comes in, shows her the bar, meets Sam, totally flirts with Sam. You could
100%.
make the argument that Sam maybe flirts first, because she was saying, he said a line, "Must have been some school. I've always been like this. Must have been some school." Yeah, which is, all right, maybe a little bit flirty. And then Heather is really flirting. I'm sorry. I watched this a couple of times because I'm required to. And yeah, it's inappropriate. Heather is inappropriate this whole episode. And somehow she is at the end like, oh, we all are supposed to feel bad for Heather. It's like, no, I'm sorry. If you saw a person doing any of these things with someone's significant other, you'd be like, all right, well, is polyamory a thing? No, it's 1984. It's not a thing yet. So yeah, this is not okay.
There's a really interesting line that Markie Post has at the end of the episode. I don't want to, I don't want to jump ahead, but she does say, she says later in the episode, it's happened to me before. And I was like, oh, all right. That's like, at least now there's something interesting here. Like that's where the episode, I wish it had gone, was like, had been structured around somebody who like is perhaps unaware of the effect she has on other people. And you kind of you all of a sudden give Markie Post something to do, and you have to kind of deal, and I don't know. I just kind of wish they had gone that way instead of kind of neutering it and saying like, oh, this person isn't actually flirting, even though they seem like they're flirting, and it's all maybe in Sam's head, except it's not to the viewer.
Yeah.
I wish they'd, kind of stuck to their guns and said like, oh, we're going to write a character who is unaware of the outsized effect that she has on other people, and force Diane and Sam to deal with that.
But then you need to write a different episode, because Diane has known her since she was in 4th grade.
Yeah, exactly.
If this has come up before, then Diane is aware of it.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, unless like Diane, they have to have been, they have to have not seen each other for 20 years or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all I'm saying. Like, Dave and I have known each other a long time, and there are friends we're not introducing our girlfriends to right away. That's just, that's all I'm saying.
There's something a lot more interesting. Yeah, there's something a lot more interesting about a character who's an unwitting homewrecker than just, oh, you were flirtatious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird because they don't commit to anything one way or the other. It's more interesting if she does have a crush on Sam. It's more interesting if we explore why she keeps having this effect on the people that she meets, and we don't do either of those things. It just becomes a way for Diane to get mad when she's pretty justified in feeling like, what the hell are you doing? Like, you're my oldest and best friend. Like, stop tickling my boyfriend. I have an issue with tickling. Like, it's never okay unless it's kids with each other, your child, or someone you're romantically involved with. Like, tickling is wildly intimate. Am I crazy about that?
No.
Your fingers are reaching into nooks and crannies.
All right.
It's involuntary spasming. There's a lot going on there.
You lost me at the nooks and because we don't do that.
Like you're in the arms and in the belly and under the ribs and.
Sir, I live in a Puritan home. Okay, we don't do nicks and cranny.
That's what I'm saying, though. You're not around tickling each other all willy nilly because you're not on some commune in 1969.
Why 69? Why that year, Mike?
Because I just read What Was Woodstock to my son.
Okay.
And so it was a whole thing where I'm like, I wonder how deep they're going into this concert.
And then Sha Na Na came out.
It was a wild ride, let me tell you.
Man.
Like every time I was turning the page going, all right, let's see if we're going to hear about the brown acid. Okay. They walked the line well. They delved well into what happened there without, stuff that you don't want to read your child coming up to it. So well done, who was. Well done.
Yeah, that tickling sequence was weird. And another moment where I was like, this needed script around it to work. And instead they're just like, Markie Post, Ted Danson, you're charming, go be charming. And they're trying, but it's just like, it's weird. Like without any stakes, without any sort of like actual like Stanislavskian kind of objective to this episode, they're just kind of left to sort of like hem and haw at each other. And it's just uncomfortable.
And what's really weird too is she's already been they've already had the conversation about how Sam thinks she's flirting. Like, this has already come up.
Yeah.
It's one thing if this is what precipitated the, hey, I think you're flirting. That uncomfortable conversation has already been had. What are you doing? Now you're going to try to like veer towards caution, are you not? And Diane, like, why did they make Diane say, all right, well, we're going to have this conversation with Heather now? Like, hey, this is a very weird moment where I'm like, he just confided something in you. By the way, kind of valid. And you're going to embarrass the hell out of him in front of everybody on this. That's not cool.
You know, I thought, but maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm thinking I have Frasier brain at this point in terms of the formulaic sitcom writing, where I thought it was going to turn into a mishap of, oh, well, this whole time she was gay, and totally not. You know, it was completely innocent. So that's where I was like, I wonder if they're gonna. But that's a trope that came about a little after this time.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of lesbianism in the early 80s sitcoms. That would have been a more satisfying resolution.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because once again, it explains like it would go such a long way to explain like why she's unaware that she has this effect on heterosexual men.
Yeah, that would work a lot better. That's a better episode right there.
I love that episode suddenly.
Yeah, if only, I don't know, but it wasn't something that I think writers were maybe thinking about at that point. But of course, it got overused and became a trope.
Became a trope.
Yeah.
All right, a few things that I liked about this episode. I like the prank call memory.
Yeah.
Which is my 80s moment of the week, because that's something you can't do anymore. Prank calls are now impossible. So I liked that a lot. And I liked that they had this weird thing. And this is early Cheers does this well. They light the fuse and then the bomb goes off later on. Where, Cliff and Norm are just kind of oddly like critical of their prank calling. And then a few minutes later, they're doing prank calls. And then we find out it's to Cliff's mom, and then they're going to call Norm's mom. And it was very funny, and I enjoyed that very much. That was good. I loved Coach's delayed laugh.
One more instance of Coach doing a human thing in a way that no human has ever done that thing.
And somehow it's okay.
Yes.
I liked, and I feel like this might have been a Ted Danson thing, when Heather and Diane are arguing at the end, and Sam keeps eating. I feel like at some point they're like, all right, well, you're just over there for a little while. What if you just kept eating? And he did it, and it was funny, and I liked it. And it felt very true to Sam.
Sam seemed like almost Frankensteinian level dumb this week.
Yeah.
Like, I made me wonder, like, oh, maybe this was one they filmed early on in the season, because like his accent seemed to be thicker. He seemed to be playing with like a more sort of like blue collar Boston way of speaking that I'd heard him use before. Like, he just seemed like super dumb this week.
He did seem dumb. I didn't hear the accent thing.
There's a couple times where especially when he's talking to Coach at the beginning of the episode, where just like the hint of like the sort of like blue collar, vaguely New England, but not really kind of way of speaking came out of his mouth. And I was like, well, this is interesting, but it cuts against everything I think that works for Sam, Ted Danson as Sam, which is this kind of like periodic, like ability to kind of see above himself, to kind of like see, to really understand kind of what's going on around him and understand what's up.
And it loses a little bit of clarity, because even the Supreme Athos, Porthos, Aramis, I couldn't tell if he was joking when he said the Supremes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. And by the way, also, like, I hated that they wrote that for Diane, though. It's like, well, I don't think Sam knows that reference. Like, even if he doesn't, you don't have to point it out. I don't know. I love Diane, and I feel like they made her unlikable this episode, and I begrudge them that.
David Lloyd let us down.
Yeah, he's usually so solid. I just feel like the writers are running out the clock right now. I'm a little bit annoyed in the middle of season 2.
But like I think what's so frustrating too is like they've there's so many templates for how to bring a guest onto this show from season 1, with Coach's daughter or Diane's mom. They bring somebody on and they give them something really, really important to do and a really kind of strong character to play. And they're great and they shine on the show, and it deflects some attention from Sam and Diane. And I was like, oh, when I saw Marky Post show up, I was like, great, this is going to be a chance for us to not to have to like watch Sam and Diane kind of flounder a little bit, because they'll give her something really pointed to do, and then she had nothing.
Yeah,
it was really a bummer.
Yeah,
because I love Marky Post. I love me some Marky Post,
dude. Every boy in the 80s had a huge crush on Marky Post.
Trevor looked her up, and from what he and I learned, she played Cameron Diaz's mom in There's Something About Mary.
Yep.
But I don't know her. Yeah, I don't know her from any other media.
She is, so at this point in time, she was a regular on a series called The Fall Guy, which is very funny. They keep saying they're going to make a movie of it. The Rock keeps saying it's going to happen, and it keeps not happening. And it's a shame. It was just bizarre. It was such an 80s show. Lee Majors, who had been the $6 Million Man, he played a stuntman who also moonlights as a bounty hunter. Yeah.
It was a great time to be alive, Tookie. Let me tell you.
What?
Yeah. He was a stuntman.
Okay.
And one of the all-time great theme songs ever.
It's a great theme song.
Ever.
Okay.
That we need to post to the page. The Fall Guy theme song, one of the all-time great theme songs. Yeah, and that was the series, and she played a bail bondswoman who would hire out the Fall Guy to go and go find people and collect a bounty. So she did that, and then after that show got canceled, she entered Night Court for season 3 and stayed with that for the rest of the show. That's what she's most famous for, is Night Court. Yeah, which is a very underrated show. That doesn't get enough credit, I think, because it ended badly. Like the last season or 2 was pretty rough.
Oh.
But those middle seasons were really funny. Really good TV. And Night Court, I don't think you can find that anywhere right now. Is that streaming anywhere?
Peacock definitely has to have it, no?
You'd think. It's not on Hulu.
The disrespect.
I'll look it up. But yeah, Night Court, very fun. So that was what Marky Post was really famous from in the 80s.
Yeah, it does not seem to be streaming anywhere. You could rent it on Prime, but
right.
It does not seem to be available to just binge Night Court, which is a bummer because that show was great. And Marky Post is great on it.
She is great on it.
Give us Night Court, you cowards, and put Uncle Remus on Splash Mountain.
Come on.
It's all we're advocating for.
Start the petition.
All right. I said my 80s moment of the week. What were your 80s moments of the week?
Oh, boy. I have a couple.
Okay.
I have a couple. Heather's hair, first of all.
Oh, the Marky mullet. Yeah. It was legendary.
Heather's hair. That hair. I mean, that hair.
I thought that's what hair was supposed to look like.
Oh. Okay. So that was definitely that's number 2. My number 3, so in ascending order, number 3 moment is Diane's apron in the kitchen.
Okay.
The roughly frilly situation felt very of a time.
Okay.
Heather's hair was definitely super 80s. And number 1 is the mention of a Plymouth and a Pontiac.
Pontiac.
Yeah.
Maker of my favorite car. I owned a Pontiac Firebird.
Oh, yeah, sure.
In college. Great car.
Yeah. Well, I am old enough to know when Plymouth was just becoming defunct, because I had seen a couple Plymouth minivans from other kids getting dropped off at like kindergarten or something.
Yeah, Voyagers.
Yeah.
Plymouth, I think, endured right up until the early 21st century.
They were.
Plymouth was still around in the 90s.
Yeah, for sure.
And Pontiac was here until Pontiac got phased out in the financial crisis. So Pontiac was here until 2008. We lost Pontiac, we lost Oldsmobile, we lost Saab.
Yeah.
Two of my favorite cars I ever owned was my Pontiac and my Saab.
Saturn was lost, but nobody cares.
No one gave a shit about Saturn. No one gave a shit. They made nice commercials. They really should have made a better car.
They made the definition of a car.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. My wife owned a Saturn.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm glad she's okay now.
Seriously. Yeah, at some point right after we got married, I'm like, I really hate you driving that car. Like, I just feel like you're gonna hit a stiff breeze and get thrown out of the car. Can we please get you another car? And she did. So I felt a lot better.
Yeah. I think there's about a 15-year period where every American was no less than one person removed from a Saturn. Like, I didn't own a Saturn, but my roommate had a Saturn. Like, you could find yourself credibly in a Saturn at any given moment.
I briefly had a Saturn. When I moved to LA, it was $1,000. It was $1,000. It was a stick shift and it had no air conditioning.
Wow.
I can't tell you
Perfect
what a
for
unicorn
LA.
that is in Southern California. Because no one wants to drive a stick shift unless it's a Ferrari. Nobody. It's like, because you're always in traffic on the highway. So, and to not have air conditioning, I still can't believe I went a year and a half with that car. Oh, agony.
That's a magical vehicle.
Agony. Yeah, really something. Really something.
Yeah, but Plymouth for sure was like, for me, I was like, I haven't heard that name in years. So.
Very important car manufacturer. The Voyager was really the Plymouth Voyager was the first minivan.
Ah, okay.
Yep, Plymouth Voyager and Dodge Caravan.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was weird. Like there was something about the American automakers in the 80s where they just made the same car with different badging for some reason. So they would have like the Plymouth Voyager and the Dodge Caravan and the Chrysler Town and Country, but they were all the same company.
Yeah.
Chrysler owned all those brands.
Yeah.
And then with GM, there was like the Buick Regal and the Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme and the Chevy Monte Carlo. Like those were all basically the same car with the different grille. Yeah. But the problem was Japan. Anyway, can you tell how much we don't want to talk about this week's episode?
Didn't never cross my mind.
All right, so Dave, your 80s moment of the week.
To bring it back to Amazing Grace and Chuck, I'm going to go with the Fallout shelter sign over the phone. There was a nice close up on the phone area, the payphone area today, and you got a real nice shot of that Fallout shelter sign, which was ubiquitous in the 80s. Because we all thought we were going to have to flee for our lives at any given moment. And to this day, my butt cheeks still clench when I hear an air raid siren.
Wait. Oh, yeah. Cold War.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It's weird because we spent the last 4 years, I think, closer to nuclear annihilation than we ever were in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we were, 2020 started off with like, hey, are we just gonna, casually get nuked but
Yeah, I think the difference is now I'm just ready. Like, just okay, fine, whatever. We've established I've peaked, so you bring the hail
more
of
than
hellfire.
halfway there. Yeah.
but at least you'll cut short my daughter.
I think it's important to clarify. You said daughter.
Daughter, yes.
Thank you. Yes. All right. Let me see. Tookie, how white was this week's episode?
The only Black people were the mention of the Supremes. And like there was yeah. Pretty white. Like I feel like that
Marky Post had the whitest hairdo.
Oh my God. But I feel like that's like anytime we have an episode where we go to Diane's apartment, that's when we're like, hey, we're in the land of Caucasia at this moment. Mm-hmm. Like this episode is not going to get any more diverse. And I don't know how conscious or unconscious that decision is because Diane just reeks of Connecticut.
Yeah.
So that's what's happening.
Yep. Yep. She's Connecticut money.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There's a powerful Caucasianality to Marky Post as well. Like there is something about I love her and I think she's amazing, but there is something about her entire vibe that just kind of screams Phil Collins. You know,
yeah.
Like there's
Which
not
is
like
why it worked so well. And There's Something About Mary when her husband was black.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because she's so like, wow, she's really white. It was very good.
I gotta rewatch that film.
Oh yeah, it's a good movie. It's a good movie. It's we talk about comedy and not all the jokes are going to hold up, but it's a good comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did you guys hear Seth Rogen today?
No.
I just saw that before we jumped on.
What
yeah,
happened?
he's been doing the rounds promoting his basically a memoir called Yearbook.
Oh.
And they were asking him about cancel culture, and he's like, "That's not a thing." And yeah, he was just like, yeah, "Everyone's still fine, and you're doing it. And look, comedies don't always age well, and you're going to have some jokes that didn't age well, and you go, oh yeah, that didn't age well. You don't have to defend it, but I don't think I made any hateful jokes, and you move on, you grow."
Yeah.
And it's a lot of what we're learning from Cheers, and we learn from the movies. And if I watch, an Apatow comedy or There's Something About Mary, I'm probably gonna go, oh, that one's a little weird, but I still laugh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and no one's canceled those guys. They're all still making movies.
I just, you know what? It's so funny. This so-called cancel culture, because like when is accountability such a bad thing? And of course it's hilarious to me that the right wing is they're the first ones to whine about you getting canceled. And yet they're so quick to, oh my God, I won't be silenced, you're silencing me. It's weird. It's weird.
On Fox News.
Yeah.
It's
weird. But I wish I could articulate that a little bit better, but I don't take complaints about cancel culture. It's not a culture.
Yeah.
It's accountability.
Yeah.
But I don't take complaints of that from the right wing seriously at all.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, they've kind of,
Yeah.
Anyway, but I thought that was an interesting talk with Seth Rogen.
I gotta look into that.
And it really, like, watching an episode like this really does kind of like bring into focus, like, ultimately, like, quality and craft matter, like you can always, I don't know, I can always find a way to forgive something that ages poorly, or that that the culture has evolved past a joke or a reference, if there's a level of craft and care into building something. And it's one of the things that I think is that the episodes that really let me down that we've covered, like this one, are not episodes that like have aged poorly because of references, but because they just don't feel particularly inspired.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's a good way to put it. Yeah. Sam's creepy quotient this week.
Not as high.
I found it remarkably low.
Yeah. Because it was one of those rare instances in which he was kind of being forced into creeping. Because Sam is never not gonna creep, but he was kind of cornered, in a sense, into doing creep things and saying creep things. It's I would say it's at like a 4.9. 4.9. Because he's still gonna creep, but in this instance, his hand was sort of forced. And of course, it's later revealed, I think near the end of the series, that he has a sex addiction. So of course he's not gonna, rebuff flirtations.
But he does rebuff. I mean, he does say, he doesn't need to tell Diane, like, hey, this is happening. In Sam's defense, it's like, hey, this is making me uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want something to happen, so I'm telling you.
He rebuffs to an extent.
Yeah.
Because there is the underlying creepage / addiction issue.
Mm-hmm.
So
there is.
Yeah.
But in this moment, I think that's a full-on rebuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much more buffing you can do than say, I don't want to see this person. This woman makes me uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she's a threat to us.
Yeah.
Dumb.
I'm giving Sam a 1.6.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
I like it.
Yeah, dumb Sam is a less horny Sam. This is a really this is a very non-wolfish Sam. So he scores a little bit lower, but it sadly, and maybe this points to a shortcoming I have. Dumb Sam, less horny Sam seems to make for a less intriguing episode. Another place I wish they had gone, maybe, which might have been more interesting, is Sam discovering that he really is excited to. I felt like they skipped a step in his relationship with Heather, because he went from being very excited to being friends with a woman.
Yeah.
to then not knowing how to talk to. I wanted to see him be bad at trying to be friendly. And they went right to this place of we'll just tickle each other.
Yeah.
And I thought that would have been a more sort of interesting thing to see somebody who doesn't know how to do a thing have to learn how to do a thing and make mistakes along the way.
There were new places to go, and instead they went to old places.
So that probably would have upped his creepy quotient, but I think still would have made for a more interesting arc.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right. Joke of the week.
This is a tough one.
All right. I'll lead. I think Coach saying, "You can call me Louis Armstrong," was a beautiful moment. You can call me Louis Armstrong was fabulous. Because it was such a classic Coach structure. You can call me by my other name, Satchmo. You're thinking of Louis Armstrong. No, but I like that even better. And then that's a funny joke right there. And then just enough time goes by, 70, 80 seconds. You can call me Louis Armstrong, Sam. Great joke.
I thought this episode did Diane pretty dirty, but I think she got off to kind of great little moment jokes. One of which is right after she blows up at Sam and Heather, and she says, "Do you think I don't know what noodles mean in sexual lingo?" That's an amazing sentence, and it made me giggle both times. But my favorite Diane moment, again, this is an impossible moment to sell, and she does it. When she's asking before Sam comes over, and she's interrogating Heather about what's going on with them, and she all of a sudden kind of erupts with the word slut at her friend. And then there's a split second after that where you can see Diane see the word hanging in the air and reacting to the sight of the word slut hanging in the air in front of her. And that moment where she kind of looks at her own word in the air is my favorite joke of the week.
Nice.
It's a great Shelley Long, sort of just again taking a coal and making it a little bit of a diamond.
What did she say? The word, what was her replacement word or her?
That I said, "Thanks a lot."
Thanks a lot. Yes,
that's right.
Which should not have worked, and Shelley made it work.
Yes, absolutely.
What's yours, Mike?
I already went.
Oh, right.
Louis Armstrong.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of vibes, not a lot of jokes. But the slapstick is what got me this episode. I think I don't know if it was the second or the third time, maybe the second time when they opened the door in Sam's office to the dog and everybody freaks out. Yeah.
Well played.
Yeah. The slapstick of that got me. I laughed at that. But in terms of a written joke, it didn't. The Louis Armstrong was a great moment. But yeah. More vibes than jokes for me this week.
Yeah.
Did you notice that when Norm opens the door, Sam is holding him by the belt? The idea being that if the dog grabs his legs, he should be able to pull him out that was a weird little moment that I found kind of delightful.
I had a George Wendt sighting in a non-Cheers place, which is always a weird moment.
Oh, yeah?
Fletch was on today.
Fletch? Oh.
Yeah.
The dog movie thing?
No.
What am I
Fletch
thinking?
is a classic 80s Chevy Chase comedy, but also kind of a drama.
Oh.
It's a dramedy. One of my favorite movies. Really, really funny. Very 80s. Yeah, like Fletch is this movie, and it's this franchise that they keep saying they're going to reboot. So it's based on these Gregory McDonald novels. Chevy Chase did this movie in 1985. It was a big hit, and it kind of became, in a lot of ways, his archetype character. But they veered very far from the books. Then they made a sequel to it, Fletch Lives, which is one of the most infamous sequel bombs ever. Incredibly bad. Just incredibly bad. And that ended what was going to be a franchise. And Kevin Smith talked about bringing it back. Supposedly now John Hamm is going to do it. And they're going to stick a lot more closely to the books, and it's not going to be the comedy that the movie was. I don't know if it's actually going to happen, but
that's a choice.
If you have never seen it, go watch Fletch. Really funny movie.
If it's streaming anywhere, I guess I got to do it.
I think, I've got it on my DVR from like years ago because I just want to make sure I always have Fletch. But I think it was on HBO. So if you have HBO Max, you should be able to watch it.
I have Mommy Dearest saved on my DVR, so that's where I'm at.
Nice. I have, there are some movies I've got on my DVR. I've got The Hustler. I have Midnight Run. I've got, what else do I have on there that has to be there? So I got Fletch. What else do I have? I don't know. But it's like I've got go-to movies whenever I feel like I just need them. Especially movies that are tough to find sometimes.
I like those movies because I feel like I at some point rented them from one particular Blockbuster.
Oh, you know what? We did have a George Wendt sighting a couple of days ago. Trevor discovered this show that I think is on Hulu. It's puppet-based sketch comedy. Yeah, I think it's called like Get Real or something, or Let's Be Real. Something like it's a couple episodes into the season, but it's on Hulu if I'm not mistaken. And it's I think Robert Smigel heads it up.
Oh yeah.
So there's
that. I keep meaning to try it.
Yeah. So there's a sketch. Oh man, I've already spoiled it. But there's a sketch with Taylor Swift and Coolio in the studio.
Nice.
And George Wendt shows up.
Oh, good. As he should.
Yeah.
As he should. Wentz had a few bites at the apple. It's funny. I feel like, oh, no, he got typecast. He never got to do anything else. He got to try some other stuff. He had the Car Talk series. He was brought in as a regular on this show called The Naked Truth. It was this sitcom starring Téa Leoni that they tried so hard to make work and never worked. It started on a network. It moved over to another network. They kept recasting it. They kept changing it. It was like she was a photographer at an Inquirer type paper. Then it was a real paper. Then she had some other job. They were just like, no, we've got to make this show with Téa Leoni work. And it never worked.
That's like LL Cool J's semi-failed sitcom in the House.
That lasted.
A little bit, but they had to retool it midway through the series.
Oh, did they? What did they do?
Yeah, because he started off as like a semi-retired, injured football player who rents out his house to a single mom and babysits her kids.
Yeah, he was like a nanny.
Yeah, but then suddenly the kids are gone, and now he's co-owner of a sports therapy clinic, and Carlton from Fresh Prince is his co-owner.
Oh, I did not know that.
It's really weird. It's like
was it Carlton or was it just Alfonso Ribeiro?
I mean, it was Alfonso Ribeiro, but it was Carlton, but like grown. Yeah. But it was Carlton.
I wasn't sure if they existed in the same universe.
They did technically because Carlton and Ashley Banks made a cameo as in character in the early seasons of the show. I don't know why I know this. Anyway,
it's valuable knowledge.
These are little flashlight beams shined on corners of popular culture that I would not have unearthed. So you're like my 90s archaeologist.
Thank you. Yes, I'm good for finding my way onto dark corners of Twitter that unearth Paramount studio lot photos.
There are worse things on the internet to unearth.
Oh, there are.
Yeah. All right. I need to go convalesce. I wish I had more pop culture talk in me. Yeah, my body does not remember what this feels like.
Do we rate the episode?
We can. If you want. What are you calling it?
Top or the bottom?
Okay. It's towards the bottom for me. It's not near the top of the bottom. Yeah, it's lower.
Top or the bottom for me because I feel like we've seen worse. This is vanilla, and that's why it's closer to the top for me.
This is somewhere in the bottom 5 for me.
Fair.
It's low because it wastes talent. Because I know Marky Post can be a lot better than this.
Yeah, this was just like I felt like they had a chance to do something kind of cool, and there are episodes of the season that really bothered me, and I'd rather see Fred Dryer again than this episode.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
At least there was tension, and Fred Dryer's good.
Yeah.
Like Fred Dryer had some good lines. Yeah. All right. We're putting this one in the books, and we're putting this one in the bed. Yeah. All right. So that's just about it. I think we've got a good episode coming up, though, if I'm not mistaken. We've got a few solid ones coming up. We got a special guest coming on the show in a month or so. That'll be good. Something to look forward to. And stay safe and healthy, everybody. Apparently, I need to get a better mask. But other than that, keep living. I'm Mike. That's Tookie. That's Dave. We're going to see you next week. Bye, everybody.